Hey, listen, thank you for coming back. We're going to take a look at the State Theater, which was built in 1942. It's located at 233 South State Street in Ann Arbor. And it has special meaning for me because I remember when we moved into Ann Arbor from Jamestown, New York, back in the fall of 1962, when my mom and dad were taking care of getting us all settled in our new home. My dad dropped my brother and I off at the State Theater. So this was our first adventure in Ann Arbor, and I remember it so well. In the movie, I even remember the movie. The movie is called Sky Above, Mud Below, and it was a fascinating documentary. Very, very different from what we were used to in a small town in western New York. So that was our first exposure. So let me give you some background information. I'm going to read directly from the website. So when it opened in March 1942, the State Theater was described as the most modern theater in Michigan and possibly the country. The Ann Arbor News reported that the Butterfield Theater Company spared no expense in building the State, which was originally estimated at $179,000 exclusive of land, but which may have exceeded estimates by thousands of dollars. And you can do the math in terms of current spending power today. What would $179,000 buy you in today's world? Or what would it cost? So designed by architect Howard Crane, the theater boasted all the most recent developments in construction of motion picture theaters. Modern from its functional structure to the motif of its decorations, the News reported, calling it the only Ann Arbor theater specifically designed and built for talking pictures, and the only Ann Arbor theater completely air-conditioned. Think about this. This is going way, way back, and it was completely air-conditioned. Built of steel, reinforced concrete, and pressed brick, it used no wood except for trim. It took up the space formerly occupied by 6 store buildings and the Breckert Apartments. Demolition of those buildings began December 1940, and the building permit for the theater was issued in February 1941. So, as we all know, watching the State Theater, it's undergone lots of changes over the years. Again, reading from the website, thus work was started on the State many months before the outbreak of the war, the News reported back in 1942. W.S. Butterfield Theater, Inc., which owns the theater, was able to obtain material and equipment which are no longer available. Again, this was written in 1942. At the present time, it would be impossible to build a theater like the State. Ann Arbor's newest motion picture house probably will also be Michigan's newest until the end of the war. The 1942 film The Fleet's Inn, featuring Dorothy Lamour and Jimmy Dorsey, played as part of the grand opening of the State Theater on March 18, 1942. The State opened with 5 shows a day, 1, 3, 5, 7, and 9 p.m., and showed only first-run features. Tickets were 25 cents before 5 p.m. and 40 cents after that. In addition to The Fleet's Inn, there were 4 other films scheduled to show in late March and early April 1942 when the State Theater opened, including Shanghai Gesture, You're in the Army Now, Ride 'em Cowboy, and Dangerously We Live. And that was M Live reporting November 29th, 2017. As we know, the theater underwent many renovations, many changes, and it was almost demolished. It was saved by the Michigan Theater Foundation. Fortunately, in 1992, the screens at the State flicked back to life as the balcony was converted into a 2-screen second-run movie theater. In 1999, the Michigan Theater was contracted to provide film programming and marketing services to the State, allowing the MTF the Michigan Theater Foundation, some breathing room and flexibility, an increasingly busy movie and live entertainment schedule. So fortunately, it was saved by Russ and his folks at the Michigan Theater Foundation. So, comments from people who have memories. I've already given you one of my memories. There were more memories than that from this beautiful theater. Somebody said a scary movie when they had fake bats coming over the audience. My friend got so scared that my dad took her home and let me stay. Don't remember the movie, but I'm so glad Dad let me stay. I was probably 11 or 12 years old. Somebody else said, I got an autographed picture and that 2 movie stars there in the early 1950s, Tony Curtis and Janet Leigh. I went on my first real date there. The film was The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes' Smarter Brother, starring Gene Wilder, Marty Feldman, and Madeline Kahn. The coolest thing, decades later, was I met Gene Wilder and got to tell him about this. Somebody else remembers, and a lot of people remember, midnight showing of Rocky Horror Picture Show. So what was happening in 1942? That was quite a year. So in 1942, while this theater was being built, on the U.S. mainland, Japanese Americans were segregated out of U.S. Army units. Also in 1942, the deportation of Jews from France to the extermination camp in Auschwitz in Poland begins. From elsewhere in Europe, since February, boxcars carrying Jews have been arriving at Auschwitz. The Jews there are 60% of the prison population. In 1942, gasoline rationing begins in 17 states in the United States. I actually have rationing books that belong to my parents and my in-laws from that period of time. At the University of Chicago, Enrico Fermi and others initiate a self-sustaining nuclear chain reaction, and we all know where that leads at the end of the war. So anyhow, that's what was happening. Enjoy this beautiful, beautiful theater. It's right down from the Michigan Theater, and fortunately, it continues to provide entertainment for all of us in the area. So thank you so much, and please, as always, stay tuned. Thank you.